before that. Cheers. So like within the photography space, it's been a particularly big journey, but primarily it winds up being portraits and branding. So I do a little bit of stuff in the commercial space for like lifestyle photography, but yeah, primarily the portraits and personal branding stuff. So I guess my niche, given that my niche I would consider to be in the branding space. So I've managed to get to a point where I feel like I have a bit of an understanding of just from a business side of things, I guess where sole proprietors are coming from in trying to develop their brand, understanding that there's certain elements that need to be refined before they can actually break into a market. That's kind of where I position myself. So me primarily, I can end up knowledge sharing with stuff outside of photography that I've kind of learned. And I do have, the better half is she's learned in the space of marketing. So yeah, so I have some tools that I can end up leveraging off from that side of things, but it'll be primarily either individuals or small businesses, like sort of small commercial, that are looking for, I guess, more sort of like personal branding photography. So I guess a good example would end up being something like a chef. A chef that wants to end up starting a channel that may be associated with like a small business, looking at their practice, what they do, and kind of unraveling that and basically personifying the idea of a brand. Yeah, basically like attaching a brand to a face and a name and turning it into more than what it actually is, or more than what it appears to be. Okay. So a branding shoot would typically end up having some sort of consult that's done prior to that. So the idea is that in formulating a brand, there has to be like a certain level of expectation that's been set to start with, to understand what sort of aesthetic these people are going for, what sort of mood they want out of the shots. And then from there, it's creating a dialogue that would end up supporting that, using that dialogue and applying it in essentially a storyboarding fashion to paint a picture of who that person is, and I guess the subtones of it would be their personal brand. So for example, one of the ones that I ended up working with recently, he's an Iranian Latin dancer. So this is a guy that's been working with this stuff for absolutely ages, like really down to earth guy, extremely humble, but he's the type of, like, he's your typical sort of like bloke. So what we wanted to try and do with his shots was display a level of humility, because it's something that's not typically seen in the Latin dancing scene. Like you find that there are, well, I say not typically seen, that's a bit harsh, but it's something that can be scarce, especially when you're trying to put yourself out there. And him having a status of basically being like world champion in a variety of different, well, not a variety of different sort of ways, but typically like in the solo Latin dancing scene, being able to display his prowess and his stature while still maintaining humility, we looked at different ways that we could end up doing that. So looking at him from, I guess, leveraging of my lifestyle experience as well, understanding how we can apply sort of like a day-to-day sort of experience for him, capture that, put it across in a brand that then ends up giving relatability to his clients. But all of this was, it was kind of directed to a certain extent by his brand manager as well. So she ended up coming in and she was like, look, we want these style photos, we want to capture him in these environments, we want this sort of mood, this sort of lighting, this is how we want end product to sort of be framed, which was really helpful as well. So there's little personal touches that I ended up putting on top of that, and yeah, that's how your typical sort of brand shoot would end up being. So I guess bringing it all down to, I guess, a few simple steps, it would be consult to establish brand. The second one would end up being location setting, mood setting, and basically like creating an overall brief. Third would end up being the shoot itself. Fourth would be post-shoot consult to basically make sure that we've met all of the brand needs, and then from there, move on, next shoot. What made me pick up a camera is a kind of interesting, it's an interesting sort of story. So I ended up having, it was one of those moments, like, I mean, it's kind of interesting, like a lot of people will end up typically traveling to find themselves and all that sort of stuff. I was the type of person that wasn't really an adventurous sort, so I figured that there was something missing from that side of things, and I was going through a bit of a rough spell, was later diagnosed with depression and that sort of stuff, and I've been struggling with anxiety issues for a while as well. It could be the amount of caffeine that I tend to consume on the daily, but we'll ignore that, we'll edit that out. No, so it was an internal struggle that I had with, I guess, depression and anxiety, and made me want to get out and sort of discover a bit more about myself. So I figured that I've been working in, I guess, what you could consider a rather bureaucratic environment for a while. Had been working in banks for a good sort of 3 years by that stage, and thought I need to engage a bit more of the creative side of things. So went out, bought a camera. Thought I'd jump on the bandwagon at the time, and it was kind of good because it gave me the opportunity to kind of explore different parts of the world and look at learning new things and all of that sort of stuff. So it was kind of that originally started me, and then it's just, well, started me doing this sort of thing, and then it was realizing that there is so many different elements to it, like, and it depends on which way you end up going. I mean, you know, for me, like, I started out doing landscapes because it was an opportunity for me to try and find a way to get more in touch with myself, because you have to go out. I mean, look, I chose to go out by myself. Go out, sit down, chill out, meditate for a little bit, and it was just find a spot, compose a shot, and then, like, I had some terrible photos to begin with. I'm pretty sure that I've buried some of them, so they're very much like, yeah, they're very much in the past. But yeah, so that was kind of what started me, and then, like, the thing that's kind of kept me going has been, yeah, just the learning experience, understanding, like, the different ways that you can relate to other people, and just meeting people generally. Like, it's super easy to meet someone and start a conversation with someone when they're holding a camera, and you are as well, which is, funnily enough, how we met. Yeah, that was, like, it's been really good. Like, it's been particularly good to me since then. I think that, and do you know what, like, in thinking about it right now, like, I think me from about 10 years ago, I probably would have vomited at me hearing myself say this sort of thing. But I think a lot of it winds up being the artistic control. So by that, I mean, there's a whole bunch of variables that end up going into this, and you as the photographer get to control each one. Like, to a certain degree, of course, it depends on the type of shoot that you're going on and that sort of stuff, but like, you get to control, like, the type of colors that you end up putting into something. You can control the lighting, and, like, if you can't control it completely, you can control it to a certain degree. And this is not leading down the path of I am a control freak either. No, like, I like that, in that you can take something that is as basic as a vision, and in understanding how you want to frame something, the location, how you want to light it, and how the colors end up matching up, you can recreate at least to, like, very close, if not, like, exactly to what it was that you were imagining in your head, just based off of, like, a simple idea and then turning it into a reality. It's literally taking that idea of imagination And in some ways, and like with photo manipulation and that sort of stuff, like special effects editing and all that sort of thing, like you can end up basically turning whatever is in your head into an image, and then like you can distribute it, you can print it, you can literally just have it sitting there as something that is your own creation. And I think the other part of it that originally kind of drew me in was combined with that. Like if you consider the idea that, well, it's probably not the best way to describe it, but for me, looking at an image that's on the back of my camera, or taking the card out and chucking it in the computer, that's mine. Like it's something that I've done, it's something that I've created, and something that I get to share that ends up reflecting the way that I look at the world, or the way that I look at a problem, or I guess whatever word you want to chuck in there. Yeah, I think that those are probably the two biggest things. It's like the variability that you have that's in your control, and yeah, the second would end up being, I guess, just ownership. It's just something that is very unique, that is of your own production. I think would probably be the two biggest things. Oh, it actually again comes from the last shoot. So one of the things that I've found that is, or I've found quite interesting. So I mean, the link between video and photos. Like video is literally just a ton of photos that are like multiple frames, one after another, that are played at a certain speed, and you end up getting emotion that moves through it. I've always been fascinated by the link between the two, but more so when like a lot of stop motion graphics ended up coming out. So you can end up seeing like a story through photos that's kind of like bordering on like standard video production, but at a very slow frame rate. One of the things that we ended up doing in the last shoot, I mean, he's a little bit nerdy, and look, so am I. Like I can appreciate it. I'm not massively into comics and that sort of stuff, but he had, so this is when we were going through the city, and we were kind of taking a few photos of like him just in sort of different angles, and then he was like, can we do like Superman like opening up the shirt? So we basically ended up taking a series of photos with that, and it ended up being like, the way it was set up, it was pretty sick. It was like this really long staircase and like a fairly wide angle lens, so it kind of accentuated the whole thing. Just like a vanishing point just behind him, a huge light flare coming from behind, and then there's like him walking forward, undoing his shirt, and then he starts to open it up, and you like crop right in, and it's got him pulling his shirt open. I think his shirt said, it was like, "Let's make salsa great again" or something. Yeah, that was good fun. I think that's probably been the funniest moment so far. Yeah, so like bookings I can take over the phone, or through my website, so www.danielbars.com, bars with 2 R's, or yeah, flick me an email at hello@danielbars.com. Instagram page is DJB__photo, and my Facebook page is, I can never remember the handle of that actually. I should probably work on that. I'm pretty sure it's Daniel Bars Photography, and you'll be able to see this mug anyway.
That's what goes into the bloopers. You know, just get everyone just doing this all day. Okay. So how's your toilet roll and hand sanitizer supply?
Oof. Look, that's a big question, you know. I don't know if I want to put something out there that's going to draw people into the property to try and steal some things, but no, toilet paper's fine. Sanitizer is a little bit scarce, so we'll see, we'll see how we go.
Surviving the apocalypse so far, anyway.
Oh, look, I haven't got a bunker, so, you know, like, shit hits the fan, then we might have to work on that, but...
Okay.